The other question they always ask is, when did you know you were going to be an artist? And I said, well, I was born with this beard, and so once it got long enough to trim, then I had to figure out what to do next. So I thought I'd be an artist. Cups are the individual as opposed to the group. I started as a potter, as a ceramist. I thought that would be really romantic. As we developed in school, there's something that happens when a group of people are together, where there's a bigger dynamic. The group of people that I responded to in that respect had an idea of a career in art. The idea of pottery was kind of limited, and it was limited partly in its expression, but partly in that you couldn't really make a living at it, whereas you might stand a chance making art. Like all of these things, they're part of pottery. Cups, teapots, plates, bowls. They're a signifier. We have a strong thing as a material society to deal with objects. So cups are the individual. A funny story is that my dad worked in wood. I wanted to work in pottery. I'd always done various things at home, pirated furniture, made furniture. There was a guy named Jack Hatfield at the local hardware store, and he could weld. It was sort of said with a aura, gold penumbra, Jack can weld. And so the drive to work in metal was sort of planted then. The ceramics, although is completely light fast and won't go anywhere, it's very breakable. You can't really push it too far. And I really wanted to see things pulled and very delicate against volumes. And the metal really led that way. I got started in metal really in 1980 because I was doing an exhibit and I wanted to do a group of tables that really depended on that kind of dynamic. I found a bunch of guys that were trailer hitch guys. They installed trailer hitches, but they were like second generation metal guys with the McGinleys. They're fantastic. They gave me a card and it just had a line. It said McGinley with a line. And I said, but what's your name? And he said, we're all McGinleys. And there was all these brothers and a couple of cousins, and we started making metal work, and then other people came along and they all were hot rodders. It was very interesting. It was a cohesive factor in everybody's shop. They all had a picture of a 32 Ford. I like prefab. I wouldn't call them prefab shapes, but I'd call them standard or modular shapes. The metal industry works off certain paradigms, as does wood. Wood has 2x4s, etc. Metal has tubing, round and square, and so forth. And so the challenge is to make something interesting out of these essentially rigid and predetermined shapes. I'm influenced a lot by car suspensions. I did get a kick out of that kind of articulation, and so I often am making things that look like that or have a takeoff point on car suspensions. Teapots. I like the teapot because it has the opposite of the cup. It's the center, it's the hub, it's the thing that's the group. and bridges out to the various spokes on the wheel, which are the cups. You've got a cup, but teapot's got all these appendages and different aspects, and the challenge is different because a cup flows out of the rim into your mouth, more or less. I did cups, but nobody ever really saw them. We'd show them occasionally, they'd come along with it, but really teapots, and so this is a chance to pull out the cups and show a group of work that people didn't see that much of, if they saw it all. Artists supposedly have this romance, this aura of being wild and woolly, but we find that most artists are pretty straight, and that of course the actual survival in a studio is really dependent on some kinds of discipline, all kinds of discipline. In the 70s, there was a lot of activity in cups. There was a woman named Betty Asher who really loved cups and did lots of shows and stuff like that with them. I think was really one of the people that spurred that interest on. The cups are not as complex in their basic nature as the teapots. They have a single part, a handle, a cup, you lift it, you drink. So I stayed with the teapots and did a lot of shows with them. Occasionally cups would be in them. This is the first show exclusively of cups alone. The big cultural references from Asia, and of course the peaches and the leaves. For some reason I think of M.C. Escher with those leaves because the branches are rods and they're straight and they're getting these kind of directional things, like he did those bird pattern things and whatnot that were kind of triangular. One of the books I had to get when I was first in my studio was called Erotic Art of the East by a guy named, I think his name was Rawlings. In the Orient, the Chinese and the Japanese have a lot of overlay on the pottery, of symbols. Things operate on certain levels, and that's constant. So the peaches, of course, first is a peach, and then it's a symbol of longevity. And I'm very, fascinated by that sensuous message in an object that isn't necessarily specific. And my dad used to say, be obtuse.